So as an executive, being a catalyst allows me to envision futures that aren't yet visible to others. And it's really by synthesizing lots of information rapidly. So it's a mindset that really thrives on agility and iteration, which have been essential, and particularly with our pace of change.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering catalysts to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today we are super excited to have time with Heather Jerrehian. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are excited. Okay, for our listeners, Heather is an entrepreneurial futurist and investor who's driven innovation and go-to-market strategies for startups and Fortune 500 companies over 2 decades. She is the co-author of Sail to Scale, Steer Your Startup Clear of Mistakes from Launch to Exit, which I already got some good pearls of wisdom for me to reconnect with, guiding entrepreneurs and navigating the complexities of business scaling. As a serial founder and tech exec, she's led turnarounds at unprecedented speed, scaled 10x growth, and engineered profitable exits, including the recent acquisition of Hitch by ServiceNow under her leadership as CEO. Heather is a founding limited partner of the venture capital firm How Women Invest and has been recognized as a woman of influence by Silicon Valley Business Journal. We're thrilled to have you here today. All right, so let's jump right in. We'd love to understand, that's your quick bio, but we'd love to hear your catalytic journey through the lens of your catalytic nature, and maybe sharing a few career highlights that you're proud of to help us see it.
Yeah, so I thank you. And I am so excited to be here and to meet both of you. This is just such a cool topic. And so, when I think about myself, I actually like to describe myself as a hexagon. So I'm not someone who is the peg that fits in the round hole, but rather a hexagon that is multifaceted, always connecting dots in unexpected ways. So, my career has been shaped by a catalytic mindset of synthesizing lots of data, to rapidly find the next opportunity to build, scale, and grow businesses. So thinking about my career, one early example at the beginning of my career, I worked at Guess Watches as an account executive, so leading sales for our major department stores account. And as I often did, I'd visit stores to see how the business was doing. And, interesting, I started noticing the inefficiencies of having multiple branded replacement strap displays on the countertops, because in a department store, everything is all about sales by square foot. So you have to earn your space. So it sparked a thought, and I actually pitched the idea to our CEO of creating this single universal strap display, so not branded, so that stores could have one, not many, to basically open up that, valuable retail real estate. And so the CEO gave me the green light, and what started just as an idea, literally turned into a $5 million business overnight. And so this was really early in my career. And then, gosh, I've got, let me think, I've got a couple other examples. One, later as an entrepreneur, I co-founded a premium denim jean brand. And this is at the height of the denim craze, so earlier 2000s. So it was an incredibly crowded market. So again, totally crazy for trying to even enter this market. But by leveraging the golden ratio, which is the ratio of 1 to 1.618, which is all about proportions, and using that in our design, so our pattern making, pocket placements, and all the details, we were actually able to create the perfect fit for men and women. And rather than starting in the US to sell, we actually had the foresight to take our collection straight to the denim tastemakers, as we like to call them, in Japan. And we were able to secure one of the best distributors. And so before we knew it, we had busted our way into this market. And within a year, we were selling in top retailers like Barney's New York and Harvey Nichols across the globe. And we even had generated over $1 million in sales in our first year, which, as a startup seems pretty amazing. And then one last example I'll give is I would say another like defining moment was my time as the CEO of Hitch, where I parachuted in to do a pivot. And Hitch had this amazing product focused on talent mobility, which is really all about technology that helps fill roles and staff projects internally rather than having to go to the external market. So, however, the company was struggling to compete with larger players because their offerings were sort of good enough and typically bundled that technology into their existing systems. So, as part of my evaluation to understand the business, I went on the typical listening tour with our customers and prospects and quickly realized that their biggest pain point wasn't talent mobility, but it was actually managing disparate skills data across multiple systems, which we actually had the underlying intelligence to solve. So that insight led us to reposition Hitch as a dynamic skills intelligence platform. And in less than a year, the pivot ultimately led to our acquisition by ServiceNow, where I'm currently working. So, these experiences, along with many others, like have been the foundation of the book, which you had mentioned in the beginning, that I co-authored, Sail to Scale. We really dive into like the 18 most common mistakes business leaders make across the 4 waves of what we call a startup journey, which is launch, pivot, scale, and exit. So, for example, in the pivot wave, we explore how to identify the crack in the market, which is a framework that I've developed to help leaders, pinpoint new directions or business opportunities when it feels like you just can't get the traction you need in the market. So the book combines our personal stories, like interviews from other founders, practical tools to help leaders avoid, that common boom bust cycles that, keep startups from succeeding. So lots of catalyst moments in my career.
Amazing examples, great storytelling, which doesn't surprise me. Okay, but I do have to say, as an art history nerd, I have to ask you, like, how did you bring the golden ratio into denim? Like, whose idea was that, and how did you execute on that?
Yeah, so I had 2 partners that were just brilliant designers, and so they had actually one of them had actually worked for Vivian Westwood, and Vivian Westwood, goes back way back when, was really like fanatical about pattern making, and so it was Richard Atkins who really are my partner that came up with it, and myself and Terrell and Richard took this idea and brought it to market. So it was, yeah, it made it an intelligent brand, which, like I said, to break into that market, we really needed to come with something different. We had like all the best materials, but having that sort of intelligent story that was different was
Yes.
really what kind of gave us that edge.
Yeah, super cool. Um, I know our audience can hear how you've shown up as a catalyst throughout your career, but we'd love to hear from you. Like, how do you relate to the concept of catalyst, and maybe how has being a catalyst helped you get to these executive roles?
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that being a catalyst resonates deeply, with how I approach leadership and inspiring change. It really captures my belief that anything is possible. That's like one of my favorite things to say and believe, and, in connecting dots that others may not, even when the path isn't fully, clear. I find energy in identifying those untapped opportunities. Like to me, that is super exciting because I would rather pave the road than follow the path. So as an executive, being a catalyst allows me to envision futures that aren't yet visible to others. And it's really by synthesizing lots of information rapidly and really using my enthusiasm to motivate and inspire people to take action. So it's a mindset that really thrives on agility and iteration. Which have been essential, and particularly with our pace of change. And, when we think about the pace of change in the world we're in now, it just strikes me that catalysts are going to have to be like, they're going to be in more demand because the where we are in this world is going to demand this type of thinking, this type of foresight to help organizations. compete in what is like a once in a generation experience that we're all going through.
As someone who has led multiple businesses, I'd love to deep dive there of how would you suggest other fellow executives take that wisdom? What does it mean for them to, know that catalysts are going to be helping them here?
One of the things I think is really smart as an executive is to hire people with a different point of view and perspective. We often, we like to pattern match as people. We like people who are just like us. And I can just use an example, like we just hired someone new in our product marketing team, and he came from another very large successful enterprise. And even our new president, he just came from Google Cloud. And when I think about this new point of view and perspective coming into ServiceNow, like I love talking with them because they are seeing things that my colleagues aren't seeing, right? They're things that maybe I'm seeing, but I need more of me's to connect with more me's to be able to help bring my colleagues along on the journey of some of the things that we're going to need to do. And so, I think it's really about being open-minded and thinking, don't look for someone that has the same skills and perspective of you. Actually specifically look for people that have very different skills, a very different life experience, because those are the people that are going to help come up with those creative ideas that are actually going to give you that competitive edge that you need.
You did such a great job of defining like all of the traits that have made you successful as a catalyst, maybe not all, but it was a good list, right? The dot
Yeah.
connecting, the energy, the bringing people along, the identifying the new opportunities. You'd rather pave it or pave the road than follow the path.
Yeah.
And I just gave a talk this week actually about articulating your value as a catalyst.
Yeah.
Because all of the words that you're talking about, like we believe, like
Yeah.
Tracy and I know that
Totally.
those are important, but organizations are like, but where's your advanced degree in being a catalyst or whatever? What's your advice for catalysts for how to articulate their value into organizations?
I think it's about finding opportunities where you can demonstrate it, right? Because an example I'll give, and I think it's sort of funny. Like I've been classified now as a futurist. Now, was I a futurist 10 years ago? I don't know, like maybe, but it's because I've repeatedly demonstrated and had a point of view and a perspective. I've created a platform and thought leadership, and so I think that people really have to um, think about ways that they can share what they're thinking with others, and also um, have thought partners, right? So people really get to know you. They get to know how you're thinking, and it's really the way to demonstrate who you are, how you see the world, but also to get that people to buy in and start to trust you, right? Because influence is all about trust and getting people to follow you. And so I think that's, you know, it's actually really one of kind of the scarier things when I think about like the people are afraid of where AI is, and AI is coming to take my job, and I actually have this perspective that it actually makes work more human. Um, but it also has made me empathize with like, okay, when is a time in the past when I have felt sort of vulnerable, and and going to kind of sharing your thought leadership was like when I first started posting on social media, right? Like I didn't grow up with it. I'm not part of that era, but I remember how vulnerable I felt the first time I did it, and now it's second nature. So again, it's just that muscle of being able to share who you are, how you think, and then being able to demonstrate it.
I love that reminder. So, as catalysts, we can be so focused on the transformation that
Yeah.
we're often not thinking about how am I really showing the value in the near term,
Yes.
and who is really ready to catch this,
Yes.
as opposed to kind of that like, but this has to happen. There's such
Yes.
a tactical reality that's helpful for us of paying attention
Yes.
to show the value, bring people
Yes.
along. So thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
You're pointing to some of the challenges that you've experienced. And so I'd love to broaden it and just ask, what are one or two of the biggest challenges that you've faced as a Catalyst executive?
Yeah. So I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges, as I've mentioned, is really that tension between moving fast and bringing others along. And so, you know, as catalysts, we see opportunities and solutions so clearly and with such urgency that it can really feel frustrating when others don't immediately grasp our big ideas or align with the vision. So I found that this disconnect can actually lead to misunderstandings or resistance among the team, or even, you know, a sense of isolation as we push for transformative change. So I've had to incorporate the discipline of making sure I pause and check to see where the team is on the journey. As sometimes I'll find out I've actually lost them a mile back, and then I have to recruit them to get back on board. And so, you know, that's a challenge. Another one is, you know, balancing that innate drive for action with the need for downtime, and particularly as I've gotten older, I have to say. A recent example when I experienced some extreme burnout was after actually the Hitch acquisition to ServiceNow. It was interesting because I was in the process of wrapping up a large funding round when ServiceNow approached us. And when I invited them to join, they indicated they wanted to acquire us, not invest, which totally caught me off guard. So I told them if they could move quickly, I'd explore this path with them, but I couldn't let go of the money that I was ready to close on. So I finished due diligence for the fundraise on a Friday and literally started deep due diligence with ServiceNow on a Saturday. Um, and when you're in a potential acquisition, you know, you have no guarantee it will close until you close. So I had to keep the investors warm without them realizing that I was stalling, and also had to put our sales on hold as ServiceNow was not interested in our customers. They wanted our technology and team. So I had to delay deals that were ready to close without our internal sales team knowing what was happening. So it felt like I had all of these plates spinning and only a very small group of our internal team members who actually knew what was going on. And you know, and to make the story even more thrilling, after I negotiated the deal and signed the letter of intent with ServiceNow, war broke out in Ukraine and financial markets collapsed. Literally overnight, ServiceNow lost 30 billion in market cap, just the same as all companies. And so I thought for sure, oh my God, this deal is not going to go through. But ultimately, our technology was so strategic to the business that we closed on June 15th and started at ServiceNow on June 16th. But as you can imagine, there was still a whole company to wrap up and a major transition to adjust to, while we also rebuilt our technology into the ServiceNow platform. So, as if that was not exciting enough, on a personal front, so am I sounding like a catalyst? So, on the personal front, I had also purchased a new home and started some construction. So needless to say, doing all these things at once is definitely not something I would recommend. But you know, the good news is that I eventually, you know, settled and I was able to carve out some downtime and got my head back above water. But you know, it definitely felt like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, if any of you are familiar of that from Disneyland. But it was that was just like an experience that was unlike any other.
Oh, these are so fun. Like painful for your life, but so
Yeah.
fun to have in Technicolor. So thank you for sharing. And I
Well,
follow up
Technicolor
saying,
because it's the past, right? Like I can talk
right,
about it
but you're
now, but
sharing them.
yeah, I'm able to share it now. But there was a place and time where it was a little bit harder. It was still a little
Of
too
course, but that the fact that you're willing to share it is my point. That like,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you. And so I want to go backwards and a question. You'll tell me if the question's relevant. So you know, you said the second one, the innate drive for action balanced with the need for downtime, obviously compounded by the fact that you had construction going on in your
yeah.
place of downtime. You also mentioned as you told that story all the people that didn't know. And I wondered if that was compounding any of the exhaustion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think as catalysts, like, you know, I've always said, like, early in my career, I was always like, I always felt like I couldn't say I didn't know. It was like, no, I've got this, like, and then I would just go and figure it out. So there's
Yeah.
something about that that's I guess, kind of ingrained in me, but it is exhausting.
Yeah,
It's exhausting to know it all when the truth is we don't know what we don't know, but we don't know
yeah,
that we don't know it, right?
totally.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, as an executive in this moment, you actually did know a lot and
Yes.
you're holding back, which is true for executives in large organizations all the time, right? They're aware of the reorgs coming.
Yeah.
They know the
Yeah.
leadership changes that are ahead that are going to impact tens, hundreds, thousands of people. What did you learn about withholding's my word, so I don't
Yeah.
what did you learn about that reality and how to manage through it?
Oh my goodness. That first of all, excellent question. When did I learn about that? I think it was really through going through some personal things when I started becoming more self-aware and sort of developing, empathy to understand sort of the human dynamic and what motivates and inspires people, including myself.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it was really through that process that sort of helped me to understand. You know, but I don't know. It's such a good question. It's like I don't know if I can pinpoint exactly. Other than I distinctly remember my brother-in-law, who I really admire and have always looked up to. I remember I asked him a question once, and he said to me, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. You're a super smart businessman. You're not, is
Yeah.
it really okay to say you don't know?" Like, and I think maybe that may have been one of those moments when I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay. I don't need to know everything." So,
Mhm.
yeah. So I think maybe that was one of those like moments of clarity around this
Mhm.
may have happened.
I love the picture you're painting of it's like the awareness you're growing in yourself and then considering like what's the impact of the people around me in what I choose to share, what I choose to acknowledge I don't know. That's it's a beautiful dance I'm hearing you do.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I think the need for transparency has become kind of the default talk line,
Yeah.
and yet it's not always really possible.
Right.
So I love that thought of, like, what's happening for me? What's the
Yeah.
impact on them of what I might say? And the positive impact of acknowledging, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew,
I
that's
think
a dance.
there's something interesting that you alluded to earlier too, which is like having the people who are the dot connectors or like finding some of the co-conspirators.
Yes.
I know not everyone's an extrovert or needs to process everything out loud, but I do think the Catalyst community in general really does like having those safe places to do the troubleshooting with other people. And I'm just
Yes.
wondering, you talked about that with intentionality, but like how do Catalyst leaders find other Catalyst leaders to support them, especially through those really difficult transitions?
Well, it's interesting. So first of all, Julia Martinson, who introduced us, who I just adore, she's a colleague and she's in our innovation office. She is someone that from the first moment I met her, we just clicked, kind of like the two of you. So I think as I've gotten to know myself more and the more that I've opened up and I talk with people, there are just these people where it's like I don't know. It's like we don't even need to say things and we kind of can read each other's minds.
Yeah.
So I think it's since I'm older, right? I'm more mature, I have more life experience. And because again, I have more self-awareness and like again, that life experience that when I just know the feeling when I connect with someone and I'm connecting in a way that's almost cellular. Like it's different.
Yes.
And so these people, these meaning I've actually got some, like as I've been actually working on some predictions for next year and the future, there's a few people I go to who are sort of these thought partners, and they're all different ages. They come from different corners of the world, but they're people that like I can have an idea and then we can take the idea here and then we can expand it there and kind of like shape shift and look at it. And it's like, that's like, honestly, that's where I like, that's like air to me. Like
Yeah.
that gets me so excited. And so I think I've just kind of I'm like, hey, you're one of me, right? Like I know you, you're one of me too. And so I think it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. I feel like we almost need like a secret passcode to be like, are you a catalyst? I'm a catalyst. You
Special
know?
way, totally. But I think you're right,
Yeah.
Heather. There is that cellular thing, and even as you said it, I got goosebumps in my body.
Yeah.
And Tracy and I have this belief. You asked a great question in our kickoff before we hit
Yeah.
record about like the neuroscience behind it. And I think
Yes.
Tracy and I are like, when science catches up with whatever this is, there will
Yeah.
be something on like some kind of cellular something energy wave level that describes us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like something in the DNA that they haven't discovered yet, but which is like some chromosome that's like, oh, you all have this
Oh,
chromosome matched with this one,
yes.
and and this one's broken, but this one works. And because of that, you have this weird tangential way that you look at the world that others don't. Like, I don't
Exactly
know,
right.
something
Yeah.
crazy like that.
And that takes me back to the first challenge you shared of that tension between moving fast and bringing others along, and you've learned to pause. Can
Yeah.
you bring it into like tactical? What is it that you do? What does the pause look like? Like that's just amazing, a gift for the audience, right?
Yeah. So, I think because I understand, or I've learned that not everyone like processes change or new ideas at the same speed or with the same level of enthusiasm. Like, I know that's okay, right? Like, I think before I used to take it more personally. So again, this goes to the self-awareness. Um, and as a matter of fact, like I don't know if you all are familiar with the Four Agreements. Are you familiar? Don Miguel Ruiz. Um, and I just like live by those. For some reason, they really resonate with me. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Always do your best. And don't, let's see, sorry. Don't make assumptions. Okay, this is the card I actually pulled today. So I always pull a card, and this one says assume nothing. Don't make assumptions. So I have reminders like this, and I think it's that I've just learned, and I can tell when I get to that place where I'm moving really quickly, and I can kind of see it in people's faces, or again, it's sort of that resistance you start to get. I'm like, okay, Heather, you need to slow down a little bit. You need to bring the group back. And so I think it's more to a self-awareness of really understanding different people, different personality types. And that's just come honestly with age and having worked with a lot of different people and making a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes, learning from them. Like I really have that lifelong learning. Like I'm always trying to understand how can I do things better, not just for myself, but for the people, that are on my team or my colleagues. So I think it's really kind of just that exploration of um, my love of people and really wanting to bring the best out of everyone and knowing that sometimes the things I do don't bring the best out in people. You know?
Ouch. How do you,
Yeah.
really quickly, how do you know if they are actually along with you or not? How do you know when you've lost them?
You've lost them. I can't, so it's gonna be hard for me to describe this, but when you talk to them, like I know when somebody is like energetically in, like you see it, like they're leaning forward, they're in, they're thinking of other ideas and they're building on it. When you've lost them, they're a little bit like leaning back, going, okay, yeah, I'll get on that, right? And then nothing happens, right? So it's like, and that's when I kind of have to pause and say, hey, are you with me or did I lose you? Right? Like, okay, let's get back to where you are and let's, recalibrate and figure out how to move forward. It's really kind of that. It's really being able to read people and that energy again, are they really?
Unfortunately, I think it's sort of more art than science for most people. And so it's that dance we have to do. All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to add a question because with your futurist title and everything that you just dropped in, I'm super curious. What trends do you see emerging that you think are going to be important for Catalyst executives?
So one that I feel pretty clear about is this idea of 360 mentoring. meaning that we need the younger generation to help the older generation to understand AI, how to adapt it, how to use it, how to embrace it and not be afraid of it. And as the younger, newer generations come into the workforce, as we have more and more technology doing work and a lot of that mundane, repetitive tasks, the stuff where we actually learn foundational knowledge of how to do our work, we're going to have to give that institutional knowledge to that younger generation. So there's really going to be this interesting shift of different generations really actually looking for true mentorship and really building that respect and trust across different groups of people. And so I think it's going to be really fun to see how that unfolds because we all have so much we can learn from each other. And so I think that's what to me is like a really exciting trend that I also think organizations should really start thinking about because the fear that people have, it is real. Like this isn't just like, hey, get over it, just do it. This is like the kind of change where like people need to take a breath and do a step by step. I mean, this is paralyzing fear for some people, really. Like, you're going to take away the tasks that I understand, like the routine things that I know how to do, and you want AI to automate that, and you want to put me out in the creative land of having to figure out my own path. Like, that could be very scary. And so this goes to the change management that's going to be required with technology. I feel like this technology has like really brought out like the like awareness of our own humanness, right?
Yeah.
Because we're looking at it so closely because we're trying to understand like how are we interacting right with these new technologies. And the way I see it is like these human skills are going like it's no longer hard skills, it's human skills, creativity, complex problem solving that are like the new power skills. And so this is really where, again, change management is so underrated. And honestly, again, a catalyst moment for anyone listening to this. That is where you can actually get ahead of your competition because it's not just the technology adoption, it's the change management. You bring those two things together and you unlock so much in your organization.
100%. We have a vision of having the top 100 catalyst friendly places to work because it'll
Oh,
do
yeah.
exactly what you're talking about, right? Is like those skills that we were asking you, like, how do you articulate those power skills? You're calling them like the humanness skills. They become the thing that's going to help organizations, continue to exist / outpace the competition.
Exactly.
I could pick your brain for hours. I know we have to get to the last question. Wah, wah. Um, Who's your favorite famous inspirational catalyst, past or present, and why?
Okay, so I would say Brene Brown because she has really transformed how people understand vulnerability, shame. Like these are words we don't like to say, right? Vulnerability, shame, leadership. Her ability to synthesize complex psychological research into accessible insights has like been a catalyst for cultural conversations. So she has been a leader or she's helped leaders and individuals like rethink how we approach things like courage and connection. And as a matter of fact, like I actually pulled out my book, The Gifts of Imperfection, today because I wanted to remember some of the things I have learned from her because they are like the things when I read them, I was like, they just like hit me squarely between the eyes. And one of them is authenticity. I can't even talk now. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. So I just love that. And then another one that I found that was so interesting is where perfectionism exists, shame is always lurking. In fact, shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. So I just thought I would share those two. And then one other thing I want to share, which is one of my very favorite quotes from Mark Twain that like really keeps me in check, which is what gets us into trouble is not what we don't know. It's what we know for sure that isn't so. And that to me,
Amazing.
like that helped me so much in just understanding people and who I am and how I view the world.
Okay, I wish myself 20 something years ago had that last one. But also I just have to say, and you could see it in the video with Tracy and I, like the physical letting go when you shared the
Yeah.
2 Brene Brown quotes, it's just like, like my jaw loosened a little bit. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Heather. This has been such a fun conversation. I hope it's just the first of many.
I hope so as well. Again, when you find your people, you know your people. And again, I have to say a thank you to my friend Julia Martinson who introduced us, because we need to find all the catalysts and make sure that we connect, but that we also go out in the world and make a difference.
100%. Amen. Thank you, Julia. Love you. And thanks again, Heather. And to our audience, thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And because I know you loved this episode, because Shannon and I are totally tingling, take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for those other catalysts in your life, be sure to hit the share button and send a link their way. Thank you again.